Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a few minutes for a few questions. Does anyone have a question? Did anyone use Twitter? Girl. She's the MVP. She wins.
Twitter MVP.
Twitter MVP. Now if I only had Twitter.
I was about to say, I don't even know if I have the Twitter app downloaded on my phone right now, but...
No, don't say it. You're talking about social media.
I have a Twitter. She has a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are you doing about retaining all of this? So it's going online, but are you backing up?
It has been backed up, at least with the Preserve the Baltimore Uprising digital archives. Basically, we're looking for final server space, like an ultimate storage solution, but I think that they're planning or negotiating something with a university in the area. But right now, it is backed up at least completely at UMBC, and then there will be that sort of final repository digital server. We use Omeka, or originally used Omeka, and so there was always kind of a platform built in mind to have the website itself with a backup, with a permanent university or some sort of hosting site. So as soon as we get that final server space, it'll be thrice backed up, but right now it is twice.
So we have a question here from Margarita. Is that you?
Nice to meet you, Margarita.
So how do you guarantee accuracy with submissions to Baltimore Uprising 2015? Is it taking submissions at face value?
Do you mean at face value as far as like a photograph or a video or an oral history? Yes. Yeah.
But as far as who the submissions are coming from, it's not public, but do you guys have like a way to catalog that?
Well, are you talking about like when things are submitted? Do we have that information? We have, yes. So the information is there. You can submit things to be like anonymously credited, basically. But the way that it's submitted is that metadata actually will, I think, ultimately maintain who submitted it. I'm not necessarily sure that we have access to something like that, and whether or not we would want access to something like that is another thing. There are only so many reasons to, if a photograph is submitted anonymously, for us to actually know who sent it in.
I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of video. Like, how do you make sure that what you're seeing is accurate?
Are you talking about an interview or footage that was taken there? Well, as far as the video footage, do you think it could be like manipulated by computers or something? I guess that is a possibility. We have not had that experience yet. We've only received a certain number of video submissions. A lot of them have been interviews that were taken after the fact, and those have not been submitted anonymously, and for the most part have been submitted by people who were above like an age where they needed a consent form. As far as maintaining a level of accuracy when it comes to something like that, if it ever reaches a point where it comes into question whether or not something has been manipulated, there also haven't been that many controversial videos submitted. So as far as like video manipulation goes, we haven't had any experiences with that happening. So I guess the same concern could come from something like a photograph being manipulated, but the fact that people would have to go out of their way to digitally manipulate something has not yet crossed the minds of submitters. I should say. Or if it has, they have not taken that next step towards actually going, manipulating an image, submitting it, and then having us have to actually check it.
My question is kind of along the line of hers.
Okay.
With the, like, if someone submits something, is it kind of like, does it work the same way somewhat with, like, the narrative of the photo that goes along with the photo? Are there narratives, like I guess, like what it was? That
Like a little blurb or
like a
something
blurb or
like that.
something?
Like,
You know, how, like, sometimes, like, for example,
yeah.
like, during the uprising, there was, like, a picture of a man and a woman, like,
Oh, the purse thing.
a purse thing.
Yeah.
The first it came out that it was a guy
Yeah.
trying to take a purse from a woman.
And then realized that he was trying to.
take something from him.
Exactly.
So is there a way to critique, like, where, like, the public can go in and say, no, that's not what actually this picture was, and try to put in the annotation to, like, have it changed, or
I mean,
like that, like Wikipedia, or?
luckily right now, the archives is small enough to the point that if somebody does have a concern like that, they can email us directly. There is like a comment section on the webpage where you can just send a message and say, hey, this is totally inaccurate, like that's not actually what happened, or you all should know that this is what's actually happening, or say somebody realizes that there's a picture that's been submitted and they're in the background and they're like, yo, I need that, like I can't be seen in this photograph, that could get me into trouble or something like that. That's when we receive a message like that, and luckily the archive itself is small enough to the point that we'll read that and we'll just go directly to something. There are thousands of photos there, but it's still to the point that it's manageable directly by us. And so if we do reach, for instance, there was a photograph that was taken at a funeral that occurred that was not Freddie Gray's funeral in like the Penn North area that was related to another event that ended up being used by another news source, or wanted to be used by a news source. So when it came to whether or not we would actually provide that, because it's a funeral photograph, we just contacted the mother of the person whose funeral it was directly to say, we don't necessarily feel it's our place to provide this photograph, so we don't have to act as the third party representative in them receiving this. We can keep this a private photograph, and you can submit things and ask that they remain private on the website. It can be something that you really do just want to make sure that it's backed up. But you don't want to share it with everybody publicly on the Preserve the Baltimore Uprising 2015 website. That's something that we can just switch to private, and then you still retain the rights to the image. Ultimately, we decided that we didn't want to serve as that third party to provide the image, and that if they wanted to use that same photograph, they could either contact the photographer directly or they could find it in some other way. So when there are kind of unique circumstances like that, we still cater to them directly because it's still such a small archive. If it ever reaches the point, and again, that's kind of answering your question, where if we receive a video that somebody's like, that's obviously been digitally manipulated, and we really do go through and watch every video, and I mean, to the degree that we can best maintain accuracy, we try to. Now, it's kind of the same issue that can arise from any photograph being submitted to a museum, though. Say a photo is sent in to like the African American Museum, whether or not they'll actually be able to say that it's 100% accurate is ultimately, it seems like it's only going to come with time. Like you're really only going to know the answer until somebody can test something like that. So we try to maintain accuracy. Thank you. All right.
I'm sorry.
No, that's it.
We'll take 2 more questions, one from here and one from the audience. Question by Sinclair. You look just like your photo here. Amazing.
The suit and everything.
I wear the same thing every day, so.
It's beautiful. I appreciate you. So a question, Jessica, what has been a defining moment for you, especially as a Black woman?
Actually, I started thinking about this earlier, and it's kind of a funny thing. Let me see if I can find the, do you still have that little? Yeah.
I do.
So there's a picture that's being used as like the headline for the Preserve the Baltimore Uprising like homepage right now. Maybe I didn't use it. I must not have used it. If you go to the Preserve the Baltimore Uprising homepage, there's a gigantic photograph that's being used of one of the first protests that occurred directly after Freddie Gray's death. And you can see a bunch of people like kind of walking in a straight line down the street. And I saw like several people that I know in the photo. I wasn't part of actually picking the photo. When the designer, who I actually coincidentally knew from high school, this is one of these small Baltimore things, when I looked at the photo, I realized that one of my old bosses was in the front line kind of protesting. And it was one of the crappiest jobs that I had. It was working, I swear this ties into things. I came back from, I went to Fordham University, and one summer I came back and I was working. I really just needed a summer job. And so I started working at an unnamed hot dog place located right by the water in Fells Point. And the person that I was working for, or my manager, was absolutely wonderful, but the person working above him was absolutely horrible. And it reached the point where on the same day, 3 of us ended up quitting without discussing it with each other. And we came in that day, and all of us were just kind of like, hey, like, I don't want to let you down, but like, I gotta quit. I gotta get the fuck out of here. And so like, we realized that like each one of us had kind of, through in random discussions, sort of encouraged each other to quit. And the reason that I quit that job was because I had been talking to somebody at the city archives about starting to volunteer there. So I started volunteering there, and within that summer, they put me on the payroll, and then when I came back the next summer, I was able to get an internship, and then when I came back after graduating, they gave me a job. So starting like, and of course I didn't think about this until like way down the line when I was literally looking at this newly designed Preserve the Baltimore Uprising website. Seeing the photograph that they picked out, I was like, oh my God, that's my old boss. And then I was like, whoa, if I had never quit my job at this random crappy hot dog place because of this misogynist boss that I had, I never would actually, like, I wouldn't be here looking at this like awesome newly designed website. So the day that and it's the only job that I've quit because I've only had so many jobs, but the day that I quit that job was really obviously like a moment in my life, and it all kind of came full circle at that point. So it was cool. Thank you.
And that answers Joy's question, kind of, what was your road leading to archiving?
Oh,
So,
well,
perfect.
there you go. Hot dogs. It was all hot dogs. Yeah. It all starts with hot dogs.
By the waterfront,
Yes.
Fells Point. Are we resisting that place, or is that what's happening? Are we...
I literally have not bought a hot dog from that place since then, like since I quit that job. But now they're everywhere, so go ahead and frequent them. The people that work there are very nice. Like, you should support them for that. Give them tips. Like,
Okay, so
yeah.
Okay, one more question. Lydia, I know your hand was up.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Okay. Okay. Yes, you sir.
So you said that on the website there's sections and subjects
Yeah.
And how is it categorized in the future as the repository grows? How do you intend to categorize them to keep accurate?
Do you mean like how things are cataloged, I guess, or?
Well, yeah, how are they categorized?
So when you submit an item, the different criteria that you can kind of fill out, you can choose to submit it anonymously or use your own name. You can provide a title. You can provide metadata. You can provide a location, or you can ask that, like, just let that stuff be kind of like sucked out from the photographs metadata and put there. That's, for the most part, that's what it's automatically going to do, is collect that metadata for you. But there are certain things that you can, like, fill out, like the title. You can also provide things like random tags. So say you take a photograph of one of the 12 o'clock boys. There are a couple of photographs of things like that on there. You take a photograph of the 12 o'clock boys. You can tag it with like bike, dirt bike, man, boy. You can tag it with whatever you want. So when you search random items, you can tag with protest, protesters. There are like already hundreds of different tags that people have just kind of decided they wanted to use. And it means that there are going to be kind of like weird ways of searching, but it also means that all of those options are going to show up when you actually do search word like bike. You're going to get results for like a little girl riding her bike to like from another submitter's like protest photo to the 12 o'clock boys to some guy that was wearing the turban that was riding his scooter all over the place because the person that took a photo of that wanted to put the word bike on the tag. And as far as continuously cataloging things like that, the user submitted part of that means that it's kind of just going to grow according to how other people decide they want to follow in line with those previous tags, or if they just want to do it themselves. So.
Great. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Jess. Give another round.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.